my screen. Please let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible, ma'am.
Okay, so shall I start now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, very good evening, one and all. And it's a great pleasure to be here to talk about one of the most engaging ways of learning, which is very meaningful in nowadays. When we talk about national education policy, they have also emphasized it. So today's topic is project based, case based, and problem based learning. So these are the contents I will be covering today. First of all, I will introduce what active learning is, because all these three dimensions which I just talked, that is problem based learning, project based learning, and case based learning, these are nothing but the part of active learning only. And at the end, we are going to compare all these three dimensions of active learning. And we can also talk about blending all these three dimensions to make our classroom learning more effective. And of course, every coin has two faces. So again, we are going to discuss about challenges and solutions also for all these three types of learning. So let's discuss one by one. So first of all, let me introduce about the active learning, what active learning is. So active learning is actually nothing but it is an educational approach where students actively participate in their learning through activities. And these activities can be discussions, brainstorming, these can be team activity as well. So here their approach is to solve any problem, to work in a team in a collaborative manner, and to receive information from the teammates only. Here the role of instructor is very limited and the focus is more on the participants. And in our case, being in an educational institution, in our case, the team is going to be a team of students and the focus will be on students. So active learning is nothing but it is going to be focused towards the learners, towards the students, and it will boost engagement and retention of those learners. So these are the types of active learning which are today's topic as well: problem based learning, project based learning, and case based learning, which we are going to cover in today's session. So these are the effective learning strategies which are nowadays the part of flipped classroom as well. So as we know, we have shifted towards flipped classroom activities from traditional classroom activities. So these are nothing but the active learning approaches which are going to form a kind of classroom where engagement and retention of learning is going to be more emphasized as compared to memorization. So let's discuss about problem based learning first. So problem-based learning, it actually emphasizes complex real-world problem that students must solve. Here, the problem is in unstructured way. They are ill-defined. The students, they try to explore what the problem is. They try to structure those problems and they try to find out what are the possible solutions of it. So the process goes on like this. They identify what the problem exactly is. They first go through the ill-structured problems. They try to understand it, analyze it from several dimensions, and then they try to define what the problem is. And once they define the problem, then they try to come up with certain possible solutions. And they also going to evaluate what the best possible solution is going to be for that particular problem. So by the end of this session, actually, we are going to distinguish between all these three dimensions of learning one by one. So right now we have discussed about problem-based learning and how to implement this problem-based learning. Problem-based learning implementation actually depends totally upon the participants. In our case, participants are going to be students. So the instructor or the teacher will act as facilitator. He will guide students how to structure the problem, how to find out the problems. Again, there can be several problems in particular case. So the participants need to prioritize those problems. What are the critical problems? What are the less critical problems? So the instructor or the teacher is going to guide them, but the teacher will not provide direct answers to them. His role is to encourage peer learning and collaborative problem solving. Now, project based learning. In project based learning, it involves students working on an extended project over a period of time. Here, the focus is on developing a workable project where the outcome is has to be tangible. For example, students are going to plan, research, create, and present their projects. And while working on their projects, it should be in a workable situation. They should be able to implement or execute those projects, and the focus will be on outcome. So, the project based learning is going to be conducted over a period of time. It will take some time, and the focus will be on tangible product or tangible outcomes. So actually, when we talk about the problem based learning and project based learning, the problem based learning on the other hand is ideal when the main goal of the student was learning through open ended or ill defined problems, right? But here in the project based learning, student is having structured problems with them. They are just going to work on those problems, and they are going to create some project work. They are going to create some model which can be implemented to solve that problem. So there the difference lies between problem based learning and project based learning. So, project based learning basically helps to develop practical skills such as project management, teamwork, how to communicate with each other, and also students learn to apply their theoretical knowledge in real world applications because they are going to develop a prototype, they are going to develop workable projects, workable models. So, here this project based learning actually tries to minimize the gap between theoretical learning and practical learning. Also, project based learning encourages creativity and innovation among the students because students are going to use their own ideas. They are going to use their own creative mind to develop such projects. And again, teacher's job is to act as facilitator. He is going to facilitate, he is going to guide them if they stuck somewhere. He is not going to tell them what the probable solution is. So the students will brainstorm, the students will work collaboratively in a team, and they are going to come up with their own projects. And they are also going to develop some solutions which is going to be unique. So project-based learning, the very first step is that, first of all, define what will be the goal of this project. And the goal has to be guided by the problems that students have identified. So when you have identified what the goal of developing this project is, then also you are going to define the scope of your project. Once you have clearly defined the scope, objectives of the projects, then also you have to work on the assessment criteria. Assessment criteria are nothing but the evaluation criteria. How you are going to evaluate your project's outcomes so that you can find out what was expected from the project and what actually you have achieved from this project. So again, assessment criteria is going to give you an analysis of what was expected from it and what actually was achieved from it. Okay, so the project's goals should be achievable, and also it should be challenging one, because once the project is challenging, then only students will be able to use their creativity and innovation. at their best. So after that, once you have defined the goals, once you have defined the scope of the project, once you have defined the assessment criteria, now it's time to provide the resources and support. Because without resources, it is not possible for students to develop any kind of project. So students need to be provided accessible resources, some tools or equipments if it is needed, and also they should have that particular knowledge, skills, and abilities so that they can complete their projects. So often what the role of teacher here is, the role of teacher here is to provide them the regular feedback and guidance. Once you provide them regular feedback, it needs continuous or regular monitoring. Once you monitor their projects, once you monitor their activity regularly, you are going to give them the feedback, you are going to give them the guidance, which is going to improve their current projects. Here comes case-based learning. So case-based learning, it is actually most effective when you want your students to apply theoretical applications or theoretical knowledge real life situations, especially when teaching something like decision making, analyzing some scenarios with known factors, and encouraging the exploration of multiple perspectives. So, case based learning is often used in professional education fields such as law, medicine, business, etc. Here, the students are expected to analyze real or hypothetical scenario, and they are going to discuss some possible solutions to justify their reasoning. So you can give some real world case studies to them. Using that case studies, they are going to illustrate concepts, and these case studies will also challenge those students to apply their theoretical knowledge in solving those real world case studies problems. So, this is going to provide them authentic learning experiences. So, what students are supposed to do in case based learning? They are actually, the first step is they are going to analyze case studies, identify what are the key issues there in that particular case. Once they identify all those key issues, they are going to prioritize them. Again, prioritizing is necessary so that they can focus on critical issues first. So once they have identified all those key issues, they have prioritized them. Now their job is to develop solutions. And how they are going to develop those solutions? By applying their theoretical knowledge that they have gained in that particular subject matter. So once they have developed the solutions, they are also going to evaluate the outcomes, because not every possible solutions is going are going to give them tangible outcomes or effective outcomes. So again, they are going to justify those solutions which they have provided. So this is going to enhance their analytical skills, critical thinking skills, and ultimately decision making skills. I am very sure all of us in education field we are already using this case based learning, but when we use this from this perspective, that we are going to focus much on enhancing critical thinking skills, which is a kind of higher order thinking skills, then this particular case based learning is going to be more fruitful. So the benefits of case based learning is that it helps in applying theoretical knowledge in real world scenario. It also enables students to apply their knowledge to real world cases, which in turn helps in bridging the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge, and students develop a deeper understanding of that particular subject area. And as I told you in the previous slides, that when we talk about higher order learning skills, higher order learning skills are nothing but critical problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, higher order cognitive skills, then all these all together are going to enhance a decision making skills. because our purpose is that students should learn how to make informed decisions, how to make decisions which are logical, which are supported by facts and figures. So, this particular case based learning is going to help them out. Implementing case based learning, again, first step is that choosing relevant case studies. First of all, try to identify the background of the students, from which background they belong to, and also what are the outcomes that you are expecting from this case based learning. Once you have understood clearly their background, their need, and the outcomes that you are expecting from case based learning, then it is going to help you in choosing the relevant and best case studies. So once you have chosen that particular case studies, which is going to reflect real world challenges, then it is going to be engaging and thought provoking as well. It will keep students engaged. It will help students to apply all those higher order thinking skills. And next step is that you are going to facilitate discussions on the cases that you have provided to them, because sometimes what happens, students just read or just go through those cases and they try to introspect themselves. They are not going to discuss it with others, but being a facilitator, being a teacher, you are going to ask them some probing questions. These probing questions will encourage them to share their own perspectives with others. And this is also going to create a supportive learning environment. Sometimes what happens, there are certain students who hesitate to speak out, even though they have some, some kind of opinion, some kind of, learning, some kind of thoughts in their mind, but they hesitate to discuss it with others. So, being a facilitator, being a teacher, you can probe them, you can ask some probing questions which will help them to share their ideas, to discuss their ideas with others as well. So, now let's compare all these three concepts, that is problem based learning, project based learning, and case based learning. So first of all, let's try to understand, none of these case learning styles are sufficient in itself. What is the demand of the time, what is the demand of the hour, is that we should combine all these three types of learning methods in our classroom, especially when we are teaching in higher education institutions. We will learn why. So let's discuss about the similarities between these approaches. All these approaches, they are focusing on active participation of the participants, which is nothing but the active learning. So they are emphasizing more on engagement of those participants. They are emphasizing more on retention of knowledge rather than memorization, and they are focusing much on active involvement of all the participants constructing their knowledge. And also it helps in development of higher order thinking skills. When we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, the upper three, which is analyzing, evaluating, and creating, these are nothing but the higher order thinking skills. So here in these three approaches, we focus on higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. We will discuss it with the help of examples as well in coming slides. So let's focus on the differences between these three approaches. So these three approaches, the primary focus is on solving complex problems. When we talk about problem-based learning, here the entire focus is on solving the complex problems. While project-based learning, the entire focus is on creating some tangible products or some tangible outputs. And case-based learning, it focuses much on real-world cases and analyzing it and coming up with workable solutions. So this is more theoretical kind of thing when we talk about case-based learning. Outcome, problem-based learning results in solutions to problems. Project-based learning results in a project or product. And case-based learning results in some recommendations. Okay, so here the outcomes are varying. We can see project-based learning gives you workable outcomes, workable project which you can implement, which you can execute. Problem-based learning comes up with some certain solutions to problems. And case-based learning actually develops decision-making skills. It helps in some kind of recommendations. So this is how these three approaches vary with each other. So this is the basically comparison table. That was the primary differences between these three approaches of learning. Now these are the comparison table. Here we can see the duration. When we talk about duration of all these three approaches, yeah, project-based learning is going to be long term because here we are working on developing a workable project. When we talk about the focus, yes, problem-based learning's focus is on open-ended problems, ill-structured problems, and case-based learning is focusing on real-life scenarios, analyzing them and recommending certain solutions, certain decisions. When we talk about the scope, yes, project-based learning is going to be multidisciplinary because developing a project requires knowledge, skills, and expertise from different fields. And also when we talk about problem-based learning, often single discipline will work. Case-based learning can be relevant for any discipline. As I told you that in case of medicine, in case of law, in case of business education, anywhere we can apply this case-based learning. Outcome, project-based learning is going to give you physical product or certain kind of event or services, we can say. But problem-based learning is going to give you presentation of certain solutions of that particular problem, which we have analyzed. And case-based learning is going to give you certain analysis, certain recommendations. When we talk about approach, project-based learning is totally student-driven. Students are going to develop these projects. Teacher's role is just to guide them. In problem-based learning, it is student-centered, teamwork is there, and in case-based learning, we are going to see how students are able to apply their theoretical knowledge in practical applications. So these are the examples. Examples are in project-based learning, you can develop a model city. Okay. In problem-based learning, you are going to solve schools energy use. For example, you are going to use some solar power energy. So you are going to give the solution to energy problems of schools. Case-based learning, you are going to understand certain kind of uh, certain kind of problems which are going to be faced by any company. It can be real, it can be hypothetical. You are going to study that. In this slide, you can see, you can understand the curriculum, medical curriculum, and you can give suggestions, you can give certain recommendations to improve them. So this is how these three approaches work. Now here comes the dilemma, that how to choose the right approach, when to choose the right approach. For example, it is not always possible to blend all these three approaches in our classroom. So, which kind of approach will be suitable in what kind of situation? This is again a challenge. So, these steps are going to help you. These are the two criteria which are going to help you as an educator. First of all, consider what are the learning objectives, what are the course outcomes. When you are very clear about the learning objectives and course outcomes, then it is also going to help you what kind of approach will help you to align with the curriculum goals. So we have to focus on learning objective first and its desired outcomes. Now the second step is focus much on student needs as well, students interest area as well, because the idea is that whatever approach you are going to apply, when the students are not feeling engaged, when they are not feeling involved, this approach is not going to work for you. So again, this is of prime importance that you are well aware of the needs and interests of the students when you are selecting any active learning approach. So try to choose those approach which will motivate and engage your students. So let's discuss much in detail the challenges and solutions. So first of all, what are the challenges? So first challenge is that time management. Time management actually, it can be time consuming. We have already seen that case based learning, project based learning, and problem based learning, it is not going to happen in 2 to 3 lectures. You have to give ample amount of time, especially in case of project based learning. So we as an educator, we are time bound. We have certain number of lectures, we have certain lecture plan that we are going to follow, we have also a certain deadline to complete the entire syllabus. So this is the very first challenge which every educator faces. And since active learning is time consuming for both students as well as teachers, so effective time management is very crucial in this particular approach. Whatever approach you are going to apply, you need to manage your time effectively, because unless you are giving sufficient time, unless you are managing your time well, you will not be able to implement any of these approaches successfully. So time management is one particular key. Next, what challenge we educators face is assessment difficulties. Assessing active learning is very challenging, particularly in recent um, era. Why? Because it is going to be very subjective assessments. When we are observing our students, so somebody may rate teamwork as a important criteria, or they can rate less other activities like communication, like their actual contribution, while other instructors, they rate communication or group cohesiveness as important criteria, while other activities they can rate less. So these are the subjective assessments which can be challenging and which can make assessment difficult. And also, if we talk about the project based learning, our focus remains much on the output. Output, that is the product. What was the outcome of that particular project? Was that product viable or not? So, here the focus is much on product or processes. So, that also going to be challenging for all the instructors. So you have to be very particular that you focus on process as well, not only on the product. Also, developing rubrics is also going to be very challenging, because as I told you in the initial slides that these three approaches are going to be focused on higher order learning. If we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, creating, evaluating, and applying. So all these three higher order learning is going to be evaluated through these three approaches. So again, developing rubrics for assessment is going to be difficult or challenging. So these are the basically challenges, basic challenges, but there are certain other challenges as well, which I have categorized here in this slide. You can see resource limitations. This is also going to be very critical. Not all institutions, not all schools and colleges can give you all those facilities and resources required, which is going to impact these three approaches. These can be lack of funds, these can be lack of technology, these can be lack of facilities and other supporting tools which you are going to apply for implementing any of these three approaches. Also, readiness of teacher. If the teacher is not trained enough, he is not having that particular expertise on how to apply these three approaches, and also he is not ready to switch from traditional methods to these active learning methods. So this is also going to be a challenge. Next comes the reluctance of students. Again, if students are unfamiliar, they are not knowing what the outcomes will be, how these active learning approaches are going to help them out, how this self driven learning is going to develop some skills in them, then students may feel reluctant and they may not cooperate with you. Then, time management we have already discussed. It is all often very difficult for from the students point of view as well, and from the educators point of view also, to balance curricular demands with time. Next is challenge in finding or creating suitable real world cases and open ended problems. We often try to share some real world cases. Those cases are not available freely. We need to subscribe some cases. There are many journals, there are many bodies uh, who requires subscriptions, and then they are going to share with you some real world cases. Then only we are going to share it with our students. And remember, as compared to, studies have already shown that hypothetical case studies are not going to be that much engaging, that much involving as compared to real world case studies, real case studies. So often we as an educator in higher education institutions are going to focus much on real world case studies, and for that we need to subscribe with some databases. Next comes the group dynamics. Yes, the group dynamics, if there is less group cohesiveness, the bonding among group members, the lack of support among group members is there, then there is going to be poor teamwork among them. They are not going to share their information with each other. Participation is will be uneven. Not everybody will be actively involved in discussions. So we have to manage group dynamics as well. Whenever we are going to form a group, we have to take care of the participants interest area, the participants group cohesiveness as well, the degree of attachment between all the team members. This is going to be important for improving group communication. Next comes the assessment issues. We have already discussed about that we do not have any objective rubrics for these kind of approaches. So subjective assessment is there. So it is going to be, a challenging task for each and every instructor. Then there is a work overload as well. It demands high preparation for both students and faculty point of view. So again, it is going to be work overload for them. Last one is the curriculum alignment. So actually there is a tension between covering required curriculum and using these approaches, because using these approaches requires in-depth understanding, in-depth involvement, and which is going to create a tension between covering required curriculum and involving all these three approaches, because aligning your basic curriculum with these three approaches is going to be time taking, and we all have limited time with us. So these are the basic challenges in all these three approaches. We can see here there are few challenges which are for problem based learning and case-based learning only, but most of the challenges which I have categorized in the form of this table, you can see these are associated with all these three approaches. So let's talk about the solutions. What are the possible solutions for these challenges? What can be the best practices for them? So again, first, what we can do is that we can provide a clear guideline to all the students where we can set the expectations, what is expected from them, and what will be the assessment criteria. Everything should be clearly communicated to them. And once they understand what is the goal and objective of these learning approaches, once they clearly understand how they will be assessed, then it is going to give them a clear idea about how to get engaged with them. Because once you understand anything clearly, you get involved with it. So first step is to provide clear guidelines and what is expected out of them, that should be communicated well. Next is we can use technologies. We can make use of certain tools which are available nowadays to support active learning, because it has been seen in the studies that use of technology makes students, especially Gen Zs, more involved, more engaged. So, when we are going to use these online collaboration tools, virtual simulation tools, such as interactive whiteboards, so these are going to enhance engagement. And once students are feeling engaged, automatically learning will be there. So these are the two guidelines, these are the two best practices which educators are implementing for these particular three approaches. So we are going to see in the next slide what are these technologies that we can apply. We will discuss it in detail, but let's first talk about the assessment, because in the previous slide we have talked about assessment criteria, communicating assessment criteria to the students. So these are the assessment criterias. If I talk about in these three approaches, we are going to have two kind of assessments: formative assessment and summative assessment. Formatting assessment, it is the observation during learning. It is a kind of assessment that is done by the facilitator or instructor or a teacher while learning is ongoing. And summative assessment is when learning has completed. So you can see formative assessment is ongoing assessment, which is during discussions. So we will understand using each and every approaches. So if we talk about problem-based learning, the formative assessment can be in terms of observation by the educator or facilitator. It can be self and peer assessments. They can assess each other regarding the contribution, regarding the teamwork, and also they can give feedback to each other. So these feedbacks, these observations during learning process are going to act as an improvement. When you get feedbacks, when you get guidelines, when you get assessments during learning process, then there is a chance that you can improve it in between. So formative assessment helps a learner to improve their current learning. If there is a gap, they are going to identify through the instructor's observation or through the self and peer assessments. So formative assessment is targeted towards improving learning while doing. When we talk about summative assessment in case of problem-based learning, it can be done after they have completed their problem solving task. So when they give the presentation of final solution that they have come up with, through those presentations, summative assessment can be done. Or if they have written reports, if they have certain reflections regarding those problem based learning tasks, then based on those reports also summative assessment can be done. Lastly, there are some concept maps or synthesis presentations. In form of that also, summative assessment can be done. So in case of problem-based learning, these are the types of formative assessment that can be done, and these are the types of summative assessment that can be done. But you can see both of these assessments are subjective in nature. That we cannot ignore, right? Let's move on to case-based learning. So in case-based learning, you can do formative assessment through in-class participatory discussions. For example, you can ask your participants, you can ask your students to discuss, to come up with their reflections. While in summative assessments, they can come up with some oral presentations. They can come up with some papers which they have written based on their analysis of the case. Also, there can be peer review in form of formative assessments, and summative assessments can also include essay or report writing, where they are going to compare multiple cases, or they are going to compare those cases with the theoretical applications. So here, these are the several methods of formative assessment and summative assessments. Lastly, project-based learning. Project-based learning, you can have formative assessment in the form of seeing project milestones, because in projects we set some target, some weekly target, some monthly target, or some quarterly target depending upon the duration of the projects. So you can see if the project's milestones have been achieved or not. You can also go through the drafts. You can also go through team meeting to evaluate what was completed, what was not completed. Also here, self and peer assessment is going to be valuable. If we talk about summative assessments, then again, final project presentation. After the project is complete, they are going to final project present. They are going to present their projects in front of you. They are going to discuss the deliverables, workable outcomes. So based on those, they are also going to demonstrate their project, their products. So based on their demonstration of work, you are going to have summative assessments. So in all these three types of learning, there can be two types of assessment: formative assessment and summative assessment. So I discussed in the previous slides only about assessment criteria and the technology or tools that we can apply in facilitating these three approaches. So here we can see the categorization of all these tools. First, let's talk about learning management systems. So Moodle, Canvas, Edmodo, these are the tools which are available. Some of these are, free trials are also there, but it is always suggested to have a paid version of it because they are having many features. There we can apply. So these tools, these learning management tools actually are going to help in organizing group problems, resources, and they are also going to track progress in problem-based learning. When we talk about case-based learning, it is going to store some cases. It is also going to share cases across all the participants. And also we can have some discussion threads. Participants can discuss it using those threads. When we talk about project-based learning, these tools help in managing project timelines. These tools also going to help in resource allocations and managing deliverables. Let's talk about some collaboration tools. Collaboration tools: Google Docs, Microsoft Teams, Padlet, Trello. These are going to have some collaborative environment where In problem-based learning, we are going to co-construct solutions with other teammates. We are going to brainstorm over some solutions, and we are also going to communicate with each other in an interactive environment. In case-based learning, it can help in analyzing cases. It can also help in maintaining, writing notes. In project-based learning, it is going to help in planning part, delegation of some task, and executing certain projects collaboratively. There are certain databases and repositories which are also going to help us. Google Scholar, institutional e-libraries, JSTOR, these are going to help in deep investigation of the research problems in case of problem-based learning. It is also going to provide us reference support for case analysis in case-based learning. And in project-based learning, it is going to give us the source of authentic data and also references for certain projects, which are going to help us in developing our projects. There are certain visualization and whiteboarding tools, Miro, Smartboard, Diagramly, CMap tools. These are going to help us in developing mind map solutions. They are also going to help us in visualizing the details of cases and certain arguments related to those cases. In project-based learning, these are going to help us in designing the prototypes of the project. We can plan certain stages, and also using these visualization techniques, we can present our results more effectively. When we talk about some simulation techniques and virtual lab techniques, Labster, Second Life, 3D modeling softwares are already there, which can help us in simulating the scenarios to test the problem. In case-based learning, they are going to help us in practicing and experiencing virtual case environments. And in project-based learning, they are going to help us in developing prototype, testing, and refining the project outcomes. So these are going to be helpful in creating a safe virtual environment where the project can be executed. Also, there are certain assessment and feedback tools which we can use. For example, Quizlet, Kahoot, Google Forms. These can be used in all kind of formative and summative assessments. This can be also used for gaining insights, gaining feedbacks from peers, from instructors, and also they are going to be helpful in evaluating the progress of our projects and presentations. There are certain project management platforms as well. Trello, Asana. Trello is for simpler projects, while Asana is for complex projects. So they are going to help us in organizing self and team for ongoing inquiry. They are also helpful in tracking the progress of the cases, analyzing the case step by step. And in case project-based learning, they are going to help us in scheduling, delegating, and monitoring all the tasks of the projects regularly. Lastly, we have video conferencing and discussion tools, Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, etc., which is going to uh, help us in conducting group meetings, consulting experts. We are also going to conduct certain guest lectures, case discussions through these virtual video conferencing tools. We are also going to present certain project results. We are also going to collaborate with remote partners, remote team members while working on project-based learning. So this is the overview of how technology and tools are very effective in our problem-based learning approach, case-based learning approach, and project-based learning approach. So finally, we have come to the conclusion. So we can see how these problem-based, project-based, and case-based learning, they are enhancing our learning outcomes, and they are also going to promote active participation of all these students by increasing their engagement and involvement throughout the learning process. This is also going to enhance higher order thinking skills and deeper understanding of the matter. So these are going to help us in preparing our students for the future. because it helps in developing critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, and collaboration skills. And we totally agree that these skills are very essential for success in the 21st century. So now this is the need of the time that we embrace active learning strategies so that we can create a more engaging, more effective learning environment, and we can transform our traditional classrooms in the active learning communities. And we need to continuously improve our active learning practices by seeking feedback from the students, from the learners, and we can also reflect on our experiences by adapting these approaches so that we can meet the need of the students, especially the Gen Z. So these are the actually conclusion, but there is one more thing that I would like to discuss about blending. When we talk about blending, it means that we can blend these two approaches together or these three approaches together. Sometimes it is not possible to blend these three approaches together because project-based learning is uh, is more time-taking approach. But we can always combine case-based learning and problem-based learning. So, what is the benefits of combining these case-based learning and problem-based learning? Actually, blending these approaches prompts students to think critically about real-world scenario and independently drive their learning by seeking solutions and problems that arise from the real world scenario. I would also like to discuss certain examples for better understanding. So let me just discuss the examples. Yeah. So if I talk about case-based learning, for example, we can, in case of medical students, we can give them to analyze a patient's history, symptoms, diagnosis, and treatment, and they can discuss what alternative diagnosis can be done and decide on what could be the best course of actions. Also, in case of law students, we can debate on court cases, dissecting details of landmark judgments, some legal arguments, some ethical dilemmas, then reflect on their applications to new or some kind of similar situations. For business studies students, they can examine a corporate crisis case, discuss the company's strategic decisions, and analyze what could have been done more effectively. So, if we talk about project based learning, students can design or build a model using principles of engineering and physics, testing which design will hold the most weight, and they can present their findings. Learners can plan and implement a community mural project. Also, for example, to create a finished artwork in a public space. They can also have certain colonization project ideas. They can develop a comprehensive plan for that. They can also present their proposals as a final showcase. When we talk about problem based learning, then students can be presented with certain open ended problems. For example, how can our college reduce its carbon footprint? They can research, they can collaborate, and they can come up with certain actionable solutions for that. In biology, the students can be asked to investigate why a local waterway is polluted. They can conduct certain research on that. They can conduct certain tests and they can come up with certain strategies to clean it up. In case of social studies or business studies, learners can be challenged to revitalize a community park. Uh, they can also consider certain real constraints and they can come up with the viable plan. So, this is how we can make them more engaged. We can facilitate active learning And remember, in NEP 2020, National Education Policy 2020, the focus is more on holistic learning. The focus is more on innovative teaching pedagogies. So these three approaches are nothing but they are related to that only. These three approaches are going to help us in implementing innovative teaching pedagogy, facilitating holistic learning of our students. So thank you for your patient listening. I would like to hear from the participants if any questions are there. Am I audible?